So our special grand finale for a few minutes, straight from his either job or residence, we're going to find out, is the bicep king of Instagram. Hold on, before he comes on. Jordan Brown can start his video. I can pretend that I'm always curling these 35s, Jordan, for Skull Crushers. Now I'm going to rip out my 10 and try to impress you. So glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Just to get started, because I'm such a big fan of the things you do, we're collaborating with some great sponsor stuff. But just to orient people, I always say, where are you today? Like, where are your feet? Like, where are you in your dental journey? What'd you do today as a dentist? Then we can go back and forward from there. But just orient who you are and what you're doing right now with dentistry.
Sure. So I finished my AEGD in 2021, and now I'm practicing in community health down in Florida.
Awesome. And where'd you do the AEGD program?
The University of Florida, they had a fantastic standalone clinic near St. Petersburg, Seminole, Florida, which was away from the main hub of Gainesville, but it just meant that we could practice as basically a pseudo private practice clinic down there.
Awesome. That's great. Now, you represent so much great positivity, and I like to share positivity too, but I also like to share reality, and sometimes conversations are spicy and uncomfortable. Why did you do an AEGD? You're Jordan Brown, the dental student. You're still our colleague, but you're not a doctor yet. You're going to graduate dental school, and you said, my treatment plan for me is to do an AEGD or GPR. Tell our audience why about that.
Yeah, so multiple reasons, but the main thing is I wanted to front load my career. So I wanted to spend more time upfront investing in learning more procedures, implants, sedation, full mouth rehab, crown and bridge, get more experience with that. That way, after I finished residency, I could also still take CE, but I didn't feel like I had to learn everything while I was still trying to practice. And then another reason is that CE, especially hands-on CE, it can be very expensive. And so for me, it made more financial sense to spend more time learning implants, complex pros during that 1-year residency, and then just kind of add, little or CE as I'm going along.
I think those are great whys. And, I tell people, as being the Nacho guy, I get dentists who are doing a GPR after 5 years in private practice, because it's just you're a paid CE. And if you're really motivated to do more with surgical things, it's very hard to practice surgery in private practice. It's hard. You can practice a veneer. You could probably, endo could be tough too, but practicing surgery really is great to get that foundation there. So tell us about, I'm always interested, you're in a community health clinic. Tell us about this program, what that looks like, why you're in that, what made you choose that?
Sure. So as you probably know, tuition for dental school is very expensive. So I had the National Health Service Corps scholarship. So they paid for D2 through D4 years of school. They gave me a living stipend. And in exchange, I committed myself to practicing in an underserved community, basically just an area that doesn't have the number of dentists they need to meet the needs of the community. So I don't practice in the middle of, nowhere, Florida. I'm kind of basically near Tampa. But part of that commitment is basically practicing at like a community health center.
And what's the daily dental life for you there, procedure-wise? Are you doing all different things, mainly one thing? Tell us about that.
So most people will rotate through a community health center and dental school. So it's similar to that. Classic dentistry, a lot of extractions, a lot of emergencies, fillings, routine dentures, definitely not any full mouth rehabs like what I was doing in residency, not really any implants, but that stuff is mainly to prepare me for kind of life after the commitment.
Gotcha. So you could do this commitment, and then if we were looking down at your treatment plan for your career, and we're going to pedal back and do some of the Instagram stuff in a minute, but just to complete the story, what do you want to do next after this? Are you looking to stay in the area and look for practices? Are you going to start something up? What's your goal after this?
Definitely stay in Florida and go into private practice, hopefully practice ownership. I'm not so hard set on either a startup or an acquisition. I just want to go where there's opportunity.
Cool. So I just think what you're doing is awesome in sharing your story. You are willing to have spicy discussions. You just had one is with Dr. Avi Patel is going to be our side gig show on Friday. And, you guys talked, dentists need to be able to have conversations that are spicy without saying, I wish I never became a dentist, or this was terrible. It's a reasonable question to ask. If it's $700,000 to go to dental school, is that going to create problems for our industry? The reason why these important questions are so important, I think, Jordan, is it's going to affect all of us in the industry. What inspired you to have that debt-related conversation with Dr. Avi the other day?
Sorry, what was that? You broke up for a little bit.
What inspired you to have that conversation where you said, this is important to talk about? I want to have an Instagram live and dig into, is $700,000 for school worth it? The debt repayment? Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, mainly because a lot of my Instagram audience, it's new dentists, but it's also a lot of dental students, but also it's pre-dental students. And so a lot of times when you're a pre-dental student, you get so tunnel vision on getting into dental school, you don't really care which school it is. And so we just had that live to talk about a little bit about the selection of the dental school process and how it's going to affect their long-term career if they're going into like $700,000 worth of debt.
And that's so important to do because there's pre-dental students paying attention probably more to you than me, but I get them too. And at least you create awareness for them, like informed consent. Jim Cashmer says, Louis Chen wants to arm wrestle you. So when you come to Philly, you and Louis can arm wrestle. He's great too. Yeah. So now we talked about your story. I know it's a long day for you. I won't keep you too long, but tell me a little bit about your Instagram journey, right? And Instagram is for you. Facebook might be for me. I do some Instagram, you do some Facebook, but just tell us about this and how it's helped you as a dentist, a person, why you like doing it. Tell us a little about that.
So back in the early days of Instagram, there were not nearly as much dental students, dentists on the platform. And part of what got me just starting to post about dental school, residency, life as a dentist, is I was looking for that information when I was a pre-dental student. I wanted to learn about people at the schools that I wanted to go to, but they basically weren't there. So I said, well, hey, when I start dental school, I'll talk about my experience there. So that way people interested in that school, I went to the University of Michigan, can DM me, ask about it. Started as that, but then when I learned more about the scholarship program that I applied to, I realized basically no one knew about that either. So a lot of my community on Instagram was built when I was talking about the National Health Service Corps scholarship program, how I used it to basically get school paid for, get a living stipend, live comfortably, minimize my debt. And then from there, me and a bunch of classmates made a residency guide. So it's very similar to that.
You do too many good things. Well, first we have some pre-dents from Oklahoma watching in, so that's awesome.
Awesome.
You and I, we've never met in person. I can't wait to meet in person, but I feel like I know you. We've talked on the phone, we've been in this, but I really have thought of you as solving a problem I've always had. It's interesting for me. I am 44. I did my residency, almost 20 years ago. So I'm not really in the residency game. So I've always said, this Jordan Brown guy has a residency guide. This Jordan Brown guy has a residency guide. Ask him about this residency guide. So I just want to pause on that because that's so valuable to the community, because just like how we're talking about how there's no really good ways to get jobs, and we need that, right? There's not much good information on residency programs, and they're making good decisions. So what does your guide go over? And maybe you could just share verbally like how people could reach out to you to get it, maybe just on Instagram, but what does it go over in this guide?
Sure. So the guide was a collaborative effort between me and a bunch of my classmates during the onset of the COVID pandemic. We know that there's not a lot of good information, just like you said, Paul, about how to evaluate residencies, whether or not they're good for you, because they vary across the whole country. And the last thing someone wants to do is waste their time applying to a program or going to a program if they're not teaching what you want to learn. So part of the guide talks about AEGDs versus GPRs, how to find which one is best for you. We talked about orthodontic programs, how to evaluate ortho residencies, pros residencies, oral surgery residencies. And also we have an Excel sheet in the book that basically links to about 40 different AEGDs and GPRs, and basically puts like a paragraph or so about the program. And we did a lot of footwork on talking to the program, people who went there, people who interviewed there, just to get as much information about the programs that we did.
That's so valuable. If they just go to @Dr. Jordan Brown, is that best way to go?
Yep.
What's your best?
Yep, and I'll just DM them the book. Just send me a DM on Instagram, and I'll just link you to the book.
Green will put that in our Zoom and and one of the things that I am just, I admire what you do, and some of what I do is like so many good people are just giving out free information. Like, you can't really sell them anything else. I mean, you do other things. There's stuff I sell, but there's such an amazing opportunity to grab free information from people who legitimately want to help people that went past them. Yes, they might have another business. Yes, you might be. You ever think of this? People come in for a pro fee. Maybe later they get a crown. It's not a giant scam. It's just how business works. But what's crazy in our Instagram, Facebook world, the pro fee's free, right? Like. There's so much free stuff that if people are paying attention to this key. So tell me a little bit. We're collaborating on this Dentist Job Connect thing. You wrote an amazing ebook with me. Tell us what you've been learning about the job world, either through your friends or yourselves. Maybe a couple things people should watch out for, or things that, you know, hey, I didn't even know this was a thing happening. I'm glad I know now. Tell us a couple of those things.
So a number of things that one should look out for when they're evaluating a job, right? So number one, you should ask, why the previous doctor or associate is leaving, why they're hiring. And you don't want to ask it in a very argumentative way, but just, you want to post the inquiry. If the previous associate, if the person who's hiring you just says, oh, they weren't a good fit for the office and they just had to leave, that's kind of a red flag. But if they say, oh, no, they were ready to start their own practice, right. So they, move states to be closer to like that, that's a good reason. Another one is unfair compensation. If they're trying to, say, I'll give you 10% of production or collections, and if they're a heavy Medicaid or HMO office, that's a huge red flag. If they are have an unrealistic restrictive covenant, that's another huge thing. But if anyone wants that ebook that Dr. Paul Goodman and I put together, just go ahead and you can send me a message on Instagram or boom, right there.
I made this text code, but you're doing some this text thing. You got to get what I have with this text thing because it's so valuable. My community text platform, it just sends you this back automatically. So you can text JB to this number, 215-543-6454. The work you put into it is fantastic. And this is the stuff that really is life-changing, because if you take a bad job, it's not easy to unwind it. One of the things that's poignant to me when I post on Facebook is, you just got married, congratulations, and all this stuff. You're new in your marriage. But once people are married for 20 years and they hear that, some young person that it isn't going well in their relationship, they go, oh, just break up with them, right? It's not as easy as that, right? Or you're going to find somebody else. But what I share with relationships is, if you're single, you can sit on your couch, have wine, and watch Netflix by yourself. If you take a bad job that doesn't pay you, you can't even afford the couch. So what I share is, taking a bad job is bad for your morale. It's bad for your money. And what you put together, and what I'm striving to do, is just get people a checklist. I have this book, The Checklist Manifesto. You should get to listen to it. It's a great book. Get a checklist for success, because if you've seen your friends have challenges with jobs, a couple of years out of school.
Some of them have transitioned jobs since they started. Some of them started at part-time, 2 different offices. One was like a Medicaid office, one was more private fee for service. They basically transitioned to the fee for service one. So there's a lot of red flags out there for practices. If you don't do good due diligence, you can get kind of caught up in a bad situation, unfortunately.
And then before everyone starts crying in their nachos, Jordan, there's also a lot of great opportunities, but you need to give yourself options. Use our Dentist Job Connect platform. We help you for free. The owners do pay to advertise on it, but like Dr. Yema said, we will literally, Serena, my amazing success coordinator, will email you when there's an open position in your area. I didn't have any of that when we were going through dental school. So whether it's being on Instagram, joining Dentist Job Connect, paying attention to stuff, you just need that one magical relationship to get your career started in the right direction. Because you saw with Dr. Yumna, and I'm sure your friends, when you have a good associate position, when you're valued and you have a mentor, there's nothing better than that. That's why you went to dental school, and finding that is really key. So, I applaud your work, Jordan. Anything else you want to add before you go do skull crushers with 100 pounds? Is it workout?
Me and my wife, we are about to go to the gym actually, but no, I would just say definitely reach out to or text the JB to the number that Paul had on there, and just get the free guide on basically how to find a good associateship.
Also, I got to wife to Philly. You have to have a cheat day and have nachos with us and stuff. Yeah, thanks for being you. Love what you're doing. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate the invitation.